Which side are you on? 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 Once more. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Come all of you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Oh, which side are you? You go to Harlan County, there is no neutral there. You'll either be a Union man or a thug for J.H. Blair. Oh, which side are you on? 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 My daddy was a miner and I'm a miner's son. He'll be with you with workers until this battle's won. Which side are you on? 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 Oh, workers, can you stand it? Oh, tell me how you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you be a man? Oh, which side are you on? 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 Which side are you on?
We light our chalice this morning with words by Adam Slate. When the great mosaic of humanity is treated with respect and dignity, when no person is threatened by hunger or war, when we have extended hospitality to the stranger and tended to the sick, when equity and justice reign everywhere, then we shall all be free. We light this chalice to hold that moment in our spirit and in our minds until we can make it real. Please join us in singing hymn number 157, Step by Step, the Longest March. Let us march towards liberation together.
Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none. And by union, what we will in be accomplished till drops of water turn a mill, singly none. Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none. And by union, what we will can be accomplished till drops of water turn a mill, singly none.
Good morning, All Souls. Good morning. Whether you're here for the first time or the 1,000th in the pews or online, we gather here to build the beloved community with one another, to rest, to reckon, and to repair. My name is Saul Ujoa. My pronouns are they, them, and he, him, and I am your worship associate this morning. And today we look again at the stories we've inherited about work, worth, and what we call freedom, so that familiar narratives loosen, harmful habits fall away, and a roomier freedom can take root in our practices, relationships, and systems. So this morning, I turn your attention to the connection card in your new orders of service, or posted in the chat. Each week, the connection card offers new opportunities for us to stay connected with each other. We want to know how you're doing, support your engagement with this community, and make communicating with us easier for you. And we particularly appreciate visitors filling in your mailing address so we can send you a gift. And first-time visitors, if you bring your connection card to the welcome table during coffee hour in Pierce Hall, across the hall to my left, you will receive a free gift in person. And on this Labor Day weekend, let us pause to name the labor that has built and sustains this city, from enslaved African labor to the often unseen work of immigrants, caregivers, and platform workers, hospitality and construction workers, cleaning and maintenance crews, rideshare drivers, and care workers, many of whom are in increased danger and surveillance during this time of federal occupation of our city. And rooted in our ideals and principles of interdependence and love, we recommit ourselves to justice and to upholding human dignity. So in this commitment to liberation for all people, we recognize this particular community's commitment, a shared promise of love, service, and community. So please rise in body or in spirit to speak our Sunday covenant together. Love is the spirit of our people, and service is our call to build the beloved community, to seek fuller truths in love, to dwell together in peace, to offer aid and affirmation, and to tend to our mutual well-being. This is our covenant. And now stay standing, because now is our time to greet one another. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Anastasia, one of the ministers here at All Souls, and I use she and her pronouns. And can I invite my youngest friends to come forward to join me for a time for all ages? 1, 2, 3, 4, come on, All Souls, hit the floor. We're happy that you're here today. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Come take a seat with me. And as you're coming up, you may be wondering, what is this beautiful box that I'm holding with all these fantastical creatures on it? And you may also be wondering, what could be inside? Would someone like to open up our Wonder Box today? Has someone never done it? All right, come on forward. It's your first day? How perfect you get to open our Wonder Box. All right, open it. What's your name, sweetheart? Caroline. Oh, what's inside? Roses, can you take those out? And anything else? Yeah. Ooh, like a bread of some kind. Pain du chocolat. Fancy. Bread and roses. Do you know what? If you would like, you can share those roses and even the bread with your other friends here. So would you like to share them? You can hand them to other kids if you would like. And I'm going to tell a story, bread and roses. Has anyone ever heard of that expression, bread and roses, before? You have, Isaiah? What does it make you think of? You've heard of it, but you're not sure? You talk a lot about it. Do you know, for me, bread and roses makes me think of my Mother's Day breakfast, which is like thumbs up. That's okay. And you may take roses and hand them to each person if you want. But there is actually a story that uses the phrase bread and roses, and it goes back to 1912 to a town in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And most of the people who worked in Lawrence, Massachusetts worked in these factories called mills. And these mills made clothing of different kinds, and they were actually really dangerous places to work, really dangerous. And it wasn't just grown-ups who worked there, it was children as well. Children as young sometimes as 12. And because it was so dangerous, the families in this town were really struggling, not only because it was dangerous, but also because they were really poor. And one of the realities, because they were so dangerous, is they didn't live very long. It was really harsh. In fact, who here is under 6? Can you raise your hand? Yeah. Do you know only half of the children in the town live to age 6? Listen to that. If you were between 18 and 25, raise your hand. Only a third of people in the town lived between those ages. And if you're over the age of 40, raise your hand. You just beat life expectancy. Okay? And this was because the conditions in the factories, the mills were so dangerous, but also they were so poor. So every day, all they had to eat was bread, molasses, which was like a sweet syrup, and beans, day after day. And sometimes they didn't even have enough, which is why kids were working too, because if you worked 60 hours a week, and not everyone even could get that much work, do you know how much they paid you? Back then it was $9, which is less than $33 today for an entire week's work for 60 hours. And so they just couldn't keep going. And so they had a labor strike, which means they refused to go in and work in these dangerous conditions and refused to work for so little money that their children were starving. And striking was dangerous. They were attacked and people were killed, and yet they kept going because they knew they had no other choice. And children sometimes joined in these strikes too, and also gained attention by going in like a children's march down in New York City, where 5,000 people came to come out and support the children of Lawrence. Finally, a group of these workers, including children from Lawrence, went and came to Washington, D.C. to share their story with important people in Congress. And there was one woman, young worker, Tioni, I think, who was 14 when she started working, Carmela Tioni. And she started working when she was 13. And just 2 weeks after she started to work in the mill, her hair got caught and pulled right out. She was in the hospital for 7 months. And she was working there just to try to get $6.55 a week for her family. And though she was 14 and there was a high school in the town, she did not know a single person who was a student in that high school. And she said, I went because my family needed to eat. That's why I went to work. And you know, not only the people in Congress heard her, but she made the headlines on the news, and all the people across our country heard her, including the president, President Taft and his wife, who worshiped here at All Souls. And do you know what they did? They invited the children who testified to the White House to share a meal with them and gave the workers $1,000 back then to help support the Workers' Fund. And 3 days after they heard that testimony, the state changed its laws to make workplace safer, to say children were not allowed to work at such a young age, and to make it safer. And that made things better for all of them. And so the changes gave them the bread. It gave them better food and took them out of poverty. But they were saying they weren't just fighting for bread, they were also working for roses. Because they wanted not just the things that their body needed, the bread, they also wanted beauty and laughter and creativity and all the things that their spirit needed. And they reminded themselves of that they were fighting not just for bread, but for roses, by singing a song after the end of every meeting. And Mr. Keith is going to play you a verse of that song. He's going to sing it once through and then invites all of us to sing it together. So let's listen carefully when he sings, okay?
This is number 109 in the hardback hymnal in front of you. The verses and the lyrics are also up above you on the screens by the choir, and you can join in anytime you wish. I'm going to sing it the first verse twice. 1, 2, 3. As we come marching, marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 workshops gray, are touched with all the radiance a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses, as we come marching, marching in the beauty of the day. A million darkened kitchens, 1,000 workshops gray, are touched with all the radiance a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. Yes.
So tomorrow, as we celebrate Labor Day, let us remember those who have fought so hard for people to be safe at work and treated fairly and paid sufficiently. And let us remember that we still need to fight for those things where they are needed, and that we fight not just for bread, but also for the roses, for all the things that bring our spirit alive. And so I invite us to think about that. And today we have nursery care, but we do not have religious education. So if your children need nursery care, you could take them down at any times. But otherwise, I invite us to sing Sia Hamba as our children return to their families in the pews.
Good morning, All Souls. My name is Ebony C. Peace. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a lay community minister, and I am delighted to serve as your liturgist today. I invite you to pull out your connection card that was mentioned earlier. Right? So show me your connection card. There we go. Yes, those cards. And as you hear of an upcoming opportunity, you can express your interest and share how you're doing, and you can ask for pastoral care either from a minister or one of our pastoral associates. We have 5 announcements for you today. Next Sunday is Water Communion. If you typically come to service a few minutes late sometimes, just a heads up that next Sunday is where it really matters to be on time, because we invite you to bring a small amount of water with you next week so that you can come up front and pour it into one of our bowls and vessels before service begins. Okay? Second announcement is to please save the date, September 13th, for our spiritual mini retreat. And this is a wonderful opportunity to invest in spiritual replenishment and sample the different things we can have this year. If you haven't made any plans for your spiritual enrichment beyond Sunday services, this spiritual mini retreat can help inform and ground you in your next steps. The third announcement is to please sign up for our UU Wellspring. And this is a curriculum-driven program that develops community while fostering spiritual growth and reflection. It's a unique deep dive into Unitarian Universalism. And if you'd like to sample what that looks like, you can join us after service today or in person on September 8th. The UU Wellspring program begins in September. Please contact Libby Moore if you have any questions, or check our newsletter for details. Our fourth announcement, as you check our newsletter, you may go to the website as well, but we'd like to share that our website crashed not too long ago, so bear with us as we update it. Things are being migrated, so just please bear with us as we update and migrate our website. The fifth announcement is that we invite you to sign up for a covenant group for this new church year that begins in September. Covenant groups at All Souls meet once or twice a month, sometimes more. They meet in person or online, and it's a time to reflect together on the monthly worship theme or another topic. People in covenant groups build small communities within our larger congregation. We listen to one another and to ourselves with care and compassion. These groups generally meet September through June, and some also meet throughout the summer. So if you're interested in joining a covenant group, visit the covenant group table after church in Pierce Hall, which is through those doors there. But I have a question about this. Who here is currently in a covenant group? Please raise your hand. Okay, awesome, that is beautiful. And if you have not raised your hand, please consider joining. It's a great way to get involved and connect more deeply with the All Souls community. And now I invite us to take a deep breath as we turn now to congregational care. Our hearts go out to All Souls congregant and human rights activist Fineness Lepenga, who's faced challenge after challenge in recent months. These have included back surgery, a broken leg, and most recently, her apartment was flooded when workers broke a water pipe. She is an incredibly strong spirit, but let's send her some extra prayers and love as well. May we hold together and in community any joys and concerns untold and in our hearts. I invite you now to lift out loud in the chat or in the sacred silence of your heart the people, places, or causes that you carry with you today. You may speak them aloud or enter them into the chat if you are in Zoom. I invite you to take a deep breath and ground yourself in your seat and in your hearts. Please join me in this prayer by Paul Dazel. On this Sunday before Labor Day, we light this flame to honor all work, not only the work we do for pay with our hands, our backs, and our minds. That is important, yes, but also the work we do for love, the work we do to help others stay alive and belong instead of being outcasts, the work we do to ensure people are paid fairly, work reasonable hours, and have quality time in their lives. The work we do caring for the young, the old, the infirm. The work we do to mentor, to educate, to advocate, and to enrich the community, the country, and the world. We honor all the laborers that support our world and all the work we do to make this a better place. That said, I will add, blessed are the laborers, the activists, the love warriors, those who know that poverty, wages, lack of affordable health care, and normalized insecurity is not the freedom those in power try to convince us it is. We know better. Today, we pray not just for freedom, but for absolute liberation. Amen. Ashe.
I told the story of the 1912 Bread and Roses labor strike, but labor organizing is much older than that. Any guesses about the oldest written record of labor organizing? Ding, 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 Moses. About 3,300 years ago, and his example is still going strong. Now, it took me a minute to understand that the Moses story was not just a fantastic case example for teaching organizing and movement building, though it is. What a deep reading of the biblical Exodus narrative or study of oppressive periods in human history will reveal, though one may be emancipated from oppression, there is a long journey to go to true inner spiritual freedom and societal right relationship. Emancipation from oppression is the starting point, not the end point. The Moses narrative from his earliest days as a babe and right on through the Ten Commandments was essentially a roadmap to both political and then spiritual liberation for the Israelites, and also could be for us. And you might be saying, for us, aren't we quite different from those brick makers, those ancient people enslaved under that hot sun? And it took me a minute, even when I was studying liberation theology, to find that connection, but I finally did when I read the New York Times 1619 Project, which re-examined the legacy of slavery upon the United States. See, I began to understand that the ancient Israelite struggles for liberation and our own need for liberation were not that different. Now, the 1619 Project is expansive in what it examines, but today I just want to unpack how American slavery is still setting the conditions for the modern day workplace. Because the 1619 Project reveals that our legacy of American slavery has created, quote, a system currently that keeps us enslaved to a particular kind of low-road capitalism, a union-busting capitalism of poverty wages, gig jobs, and normalized insecurity. Remember, pay attention, because whether it was in ancient Egypt or in America today, the political system serves an economic system founded upon human exploitation of the many to the benefit of the few. Just like today's Amazon operation managers, slaveholders understood that their profits climbed when they extracted maximum effort out of each worker. So they paid close attention to the inputs and outputs by developing precise systems of record keeping. Meticulous bookkeepers and overseers were just as important to the productivity of a slave labor camp as were the field hands. We don't often talk about racism and oppression in terms of record keeping, but we need to pay attention to that. Overseers on plantations recorded each enslaved worker's yields. Accounting took place not only after nightfall when cotton baskets were weighed, but throughout the workday. In the words of one North Carolina planter, enslaved workers were to be, quote, followed up on from daybreak until dark. Having hands line pick in rows sometimes longer than 5 football fields straight so you could see right down each row allowed overseers to spot anyone lagging behind. The uniform layout of the land had a logic designed to dominate. Faster workers were placed at the head of the line, which encouraged those who followed to match the captain's pace. today's modern technology has facilitated an unremitting workplace supervision. Let's get concrete about this. Modern workers are subjected to a wide variety of surveillance strategies, from drug tests to closed-circuit video monitoring to apps and even devices that sense heat and motion. They know if you've been lingering by a water cooler for too long and whom you are with. A 2006 survey found that more than a third of companies with workforces of 1,000 or more had staff members who read through employees' outbound emails. And let's talk about Amazon in particular. Amazon has essentially quotas for how productive each worker would be. They're looking for workers in their warehouses to scan 300 items per hour, which means though they are given breaks to make their quota, it is impossible for them to take breaks other than their 30-minute lunch break, or even to use the bathroom. They get dinged if they start falling behind by even just a few minutes. The repetitive motions of the things that they are moving cause stress injuries. In fact, Amazon warehouses have 30% more injuries than other comparable workplace like warehouses and factories. How much, I wonder, is this connected to the, yes, I would like this delivered the next morning? The 1619 Project says, there is some comfort, I think, in attributing the sheer brutality of slavery to dumb racism. We imagine pain being inflicted at random, doled out by the stereotypical white overseer, free but poor. But a good many overseers weren't allowed to whip at all. Punishments were authorized by the higher-ups. It was not so much the rage of the poor white southerner, but the greed of the rich white planter that drove the lash. The violence was neither arbitrary nor gratuitous. It was rational, capitalistic, all part of the design. It is why punishments rose and fell with global market fluctuations. There was more violence when there was more profit to be made. They drove the exploited workers harder. We see this today when we look at some of the most lucrative fields like investment banking, corporate law, which can also be relentlessly punishing. One of my college roommates worked for one of the major corporate law firms, and I remember we got married on Sunday at 5 p.m. on Memorial Day weekend, and she was frantically anxious right until up the ceremony and even through it that she might get called into work at any time. She would call me and whisper, never even in the hallways of her workplace, about how she was fearful. Fearful not only of the unrelenting pressures, but their impacts on her health. And one day she called me, and she was in this state of panic, and she said, "Oh my God, I need to tell you something." And she shared that there was this other woman who worked at her firm in her office here in DC, a couple floors up. And this woman had been found dead at her desk, under the age of 40. And when she had collapsed, she fell on her desk and her files fell on her. She wasn't discovered for 2 or 3 days, and they were looking for her, wondering why she wasn't responding to her work emails. And she said, "I'm losing my hair, I'm losing weight, my doctor's concerned about me. I don't know how to get out of this." It is important to acknowledge that slavery and the racism that upheld it did supplement white workers
with what W.E.B. Du Bois called a public and psychological wage, which allowed them to roam freely and feel a sense of entitlement. But this too served the interests of money. Slavery pulled down all workers' wages. Both in cities and the countryside, employers had access to a large and flexible labor pool made up of enslaved and free people. Just as in today's gig economy, day laborers during slavery's reign often lived under conditions of scarcity and uncertainty, and jobs meant to be worked for a few months were worked for lifetimes. Labor power had little chance when bosses could choose between buying people, renting them, contracting indentured servants, or hiring children or prisoners. This lack of protection, insecurity, and disregard for workers continues today. I think about how 300,000 people will have been pushed out of federal employment this year, and how that floods the marketplace. And they say, go work for the private sector. But how freely and how much they can take advantage of finding people for lower salaries and perhaps less and more exploitative conditions. This is the reality of the American workplace, but it's not a given reality. In Iceland, 90% of workers belong to trade unions authorized to fight for living wages and fair working conditions. Only 9% of American workers carry union cards, and that's a percentage that has been dropping. How easy is it to fire workers here? Countries like Indonesia and Portugal have strong rules about severance pay and reasons for dismissal. They virtually disappear in the United States, ranked dead last out of 71 countries. And we saw with DOGE how thoroughly and quickly even the labor protections we do have can be overcome. The lack of protection and insecurity and the pulling down of all labor value created a starkly uneven playing field, dividing workers from themselves. It also made all non-slavery appear as freedom. It made all non-slavery appear as freedom, as the economic historian Stanley Engerman has written. Witnessing the horrors of slavery drilled into poor white workers that things could be worse. So they generally accepted their lot, and American freedom became broadly defined as the opposite of bondage. It was freedom that understood what it was against, but not what it was for. It was a malnourished and mean kind of freedom that kept you out of chains, but did not provide bread or shelter. It was a freedom all too easily pleased. Don't you agree that those families in Lawrence only had a malnourished and mean freedom? Weren't they also fighting for basic liberation from exploitation? We are not truly free yet. We are more like the enslavement-oriented Israelites wandering the Sinai than we realize. Do you remember what happened when Moses got the Israelites the other side of the Red Sea? This is the 40 years wandering around in the desert. Let's see, was this a time of celebration? They squabbled, they complained, they created and worshiped a golden calf, they attacked their leaders, anointed others, abandoned them too. They fought, lamented, and even for periods of time thought favorably of Egypt and wondered if they should go back to get some level of security and familiarity. And of course that was true, because nothing about living within an oppressed system taught them at all about how to be free. Our liberation doesn't occur when one pharaoh replaces another or one president replaces another, those changes can be significant. Liberation happens when we have truly become free, when we are no longer commodities or means of production, but rather understand ourselves as worthy. Let me share a little story of, there was not a period of time from the summer before 9th grade until the summer when I was 24, so about 10 years, where I ever took more than a week off of school or working. And all throughout college, most of the time, I was in school and working. And yet I saved up some money, and for about a 1-month period, I was backpacking around China. And in all the different places I went, I started to think, how am I supposed to utilize this time? Who am I supposed to, how is this gonna go on a resume, or how is this gonna add to my credentials? And then I began to realize, no, this was just for me. I could invest in myself because I'm a human being who needs life and flourishing, who has value beyond and besides my productivity. And I'll tell you, when I came to look for a job in DC, people would be like, there's something a little off about you. Because I understood that not all of who I was and what I was supposed to do was to serve a mission and an organization, no matter how much I believed in it. When we understand ourselves and others as having inherent worthiness, that is when spiritual liberation comes. When our societal systems no longer reflect the imperial empire, but rather freedom. When we are not just physically free, politically free, economically free, but also psychologically and spiritually free. You want to hear a little bit more about that freedom? Now remember, Moses not only delivered his people out of Egypt, he delivered to them the 10 Commandments, because these were guideposts that show them the practices of liberation. Old Testament scholar Walter Brueggemann points out something interesting, which is that the Sabbath commandment is the 4th commandment. The 3 preceding ones are all about one's relationship with God, and a liberating God at that. And commandments 5 through 10 are all about our relationships with other people. It is the Sabbath commandment that links and bridges them both. Brueggemann believed that liberation from exploitation in particular hangs on this 4th commandment, to take a Sabbath. Rest. The commandment is to rest. Everyone rest. You, those who serve you, the earth itself, the fields, rest. There was no resting in enslavement. There was just overproduction. The Sabbath is a sacred resistance to this exploitation. It is a God-sanctioned labor strike. Under the Sabbath, we center restfulness and reject restlessness. With the Sabbath, we connect to our spiritual needs. The Sabbath time is the time of roses, when we give ourselves to beauty and expansiveness. We're going to gift you with a little bit of Sabbath time this morning. Keith is going to play some music to hold us in a spirit of rest, that we may connect with our worthiness, that we may rest our bodies and put down our burdens. In this time and in the days ahead, I invite you to yearn for spiritual liberation, as well as political and economic liberation. May we know that worthiness every time our spirit breathes free, every time our mind goes to imagine and experience the beloved community. May we know that experience and breathe it into being. May this be so, and amen.
don't know about you, but I feel really calm and centered after that. So thank you to all of our musicians for gifting us with beautiful music. Our August Share the Plate recipient is Project Hope. Project Hope is a leading global health and humanitarian organization dedicated to transforming the health and well-being of communities around the world. It works to support children and families in both Gaza and Ukraine. And Project Hope has a 96% rating on Charity Navigator. We invite you to give as generously as you can. If you're in the sanctuary, the ushers will be passing the plate for our offering. You can also text to All Souls by sending ASCU to 73256. If you're on Zoom, click the link in the chat, which will direct you to All Souls' online giving. And because generosity is also about how we live together, we invite your reflections as the music plays. This week, Reverend Anastasia is asking us to reflect on this question: how can you support or imagine liberation given our current American economic practices? Please use the connection card to share your thoughts and anything else you'd like us to know. The offering will now be collected and graciously received.
As we're celebrating the roses as well, can we give a special acknowledgement? That was an original composition of Keats, and the arrangement of Loving Kindness was also by him. Remembering our courageous ancestors who forsook oppression with security to pursue liberation even with risk, who knew through their Sabbath moments the inherent worthiness of human life. May we go willing to pursue liberation with conviction and commitment, seeking bread and roses for all. And now to connect with the voices of one of our ancestors and to introduce our benediction with music.
Miner, as you well know, but I'm as close as I could be not to be one. My father was a coal miner who was killed in the mines, and my husband is slowly dying with black lung. And my husband and me was in the strike in the 30s in bloody Harlan County, and I do mean it is bloody too. And they tell me, these miners say, we're going to stick it out unless Duke Power signs the contract till hell freezes over. And the man knows he's got nothing to lose but their chains and their union to gain. So I say, hang in there. And now this song I composed in the 30s. And as you know, I'm old, that's 40 years ago, and I can't sing very well. But you can ask the scabs and the gun thugs which side they're on, because they're workers too. Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? If you go to Harlan County, there is no neutral there. You'll either be a Union man or a thug for J.H. Blair. Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
You on? Which side are you on? Here we go. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Come all of you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Here we go now. Which side are you? Oh, workers, can you stand it? Oh, tell me how you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you be a man? Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are... Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?